record. Okay.
And I don't know, Harry, if you need to give me co-host access to share some slides, because we'll have some Quran verses there.
Yeah, just let me see if I can do that. Make co-host. Yeah, there you go.
Awesome.
Good idea. Okay, we've got our housekeeping out of the way. Great. Okay, welcome to another show by Tawhid. Omar is busy, so I'm just going to be the host, and Suad is here. She's as a participant, and this is a really a show that's very dear to my heart. The kids in the Muslim communities, the kids, and within that we've got Catherine Jones and Janine. I'm sorry, Janine, I don't know your last name, but it's just and they're doing a program through back to the FITRAH Mentoring Academy. And with kids, it's a new program, and we're going to talk about this program and what their dreams are for it and how it can be effective. I just back to the FITRAH Mentoring Academy, which Catherine heads, is to me a very impressive impact in the Muslim community from the 3P perspective. And I might even be so bold to say that it's the most major influence from a 3P perspective, especially with women in the Muslim community. They did a parenting conference a couple of weeks ago, and Catherine told me that they had 1,900 registrations, which I must admit I was quite impressed with. I don't really care much for statistics, but my hat is off to you for attracting that many beautiful people and the beautiful messages that they have sharing within it. And in that regard, Tawhid ACT training, which is myself from Addiction, Alcoholism, and 3 Principles, and Catherine Jones and Back to the FITRAH Mentoring Academy, we're going to do a joint partnering conference June 10th and 11th on addiction in the Muslim community. And we'll give you a little more information on that as we solidify everything in our heads. But this is a very exciting prospect for Tawhid, because when we started, I had visions of how it might go out and so on, but it was very, very slow. And this is one of the first major connection we made was I suddenly became aware that Catherine was doing a lot of beautiful, wise work, helping so many people, and very turned on by it, very excited about what she's sharing and so on, which, by the way, mattered more than the other, what I just mentioned, the internal energy that this woman has and the wisdom and what she creates. And she couldn't create so much if she wasn't inside. I know for a fact that if you're in your head and you've got a lot of stuff to do, you get over busy and you drop the bucket or you drop the ball or whatever you want to call it. But Catherine is turned on with the idea of sharing, and she's sharing her experience of what she's living. That's all I'm doing as well. It's not, we can talk about status and power and project, but it's the level of the person inside. And if she's sharing and not burning herself out, she's obviously allowing the spirit to guide her. She's not allowing the intellect and the seriousness, and I've got to do this type of thing. And I can't begin to tell you how important that is with working with kids. If you can't bring that feeling into the kids, it's impossible. Now, one of the things we're going to talk about is, why do the Muslim people need a special curriculum from her perspective? And one of the things, Catherine, I don't know if you're aware of it, but I started my 3P career working a lot in the indigenous Native American Indian perspective. And I started it with teaching a self-esteem for everyone course to the kids 13 to 18. And it was very interesting that I loved it. And the lady I did it with, Marika Mayer, she loved it. The kids loved it, but they didn't like the curriculum because the curriculum was white man stories, white man realities, and they couldn't relate to it. It wasn't their world. And so I started to write stories around the indigenous background. And when I taught it to the kids and so on, I saw how much easier it was to receive them and how much more I was enjoying it because I was speaking from their perspective, not my, everything is, it's like diversity and 3PGC. All of a sudden, it brings a different flavor to it. Now, so I'm very much into what they're talking about. I don't know much about it, I'll be honest, but the little bit I know about it, which is really, to be honest, Catherine, just what we chit-chatted a few minutes ago, they're going to explain how it is. But one of the things that Catherine and Janine understand is the wisdom and the ability of the purity of the principles from a kid's mind. And I'm going to just relate that. I'm going to turn it over to you guys in a second, but I just realized I had a few things to share. I was in my daughter's grade 2 class, and I was teaching them a chapter from Krista Campsell's book, but I don't teach it like she does it. I just sort of use the story and use my energy and my personality and being crazy and lovable with the kids. And all of a sudden, and we were talking about bullying, and we saw bullying from an insecure response and bullying from a secure place. And all of a sudden a thought popped into my head. And it was, I said to the kids, what is stress? 24 kids, all different, multicultural, all different nationalities and different things. Not one of the kids knew what stress was, but they knew their parents had a lot of it because they kept talking about it. And then all of a sudden, I realized, and my daughter realized with a shocked look on her face, that the parents are teaching the kids about stress. It's not part of their world. It is again that conditional thinking that people innocently, not on purpose, but innocently sharing and teaching the kids to be stressed out. And you notice when a parent is uptight, their kid has a tendency to be a little uptight or high energy, and they don't like it because it reminds. And that was very, very important for me to see how wise the kids are before we get up and mess them up type of thing. And what they're doing is they're bringing the kids back either to their original feeling about life, or they're helping the kids adjust to the nonsense that they're hearing from the world about it. Innocently, the parents are lovingly sharing, but they're sharing their problems, they're sharing their beliefs, and they're misguiding the kids into being over competitive, over ambitious, over this, over that, overachieve, over all that type of stuff. When, as Anand said when we were talking, it's all about connection, connecting with the kids on the level that they have. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to you, Catherine, and Janine. You should unmute yourself, Janine. And could you, so the first question I have, which I mentioned to you, why did you do this program? And what are the characteristics that you were looking at to achieve? And are you having fun with it?
I think you've already shared why we did it through your own story about why you did it for the Indigenous kids, because the programs of well-being that are being taught a lot in Islamic schools are from that white secular perspective. and don't have the same impact or really resonate with the cultures within our schools. Our schools are very multicultural. They're, I think we have, in the 20s to 30s of languages spoken within our schools. And being a white person, I'm the minority in those schools. You have every, color skin in the rainbow in our schools. So having a white curriculum with, Western names and Western problems, although of course a lot of our Muslims living in the West also suffer the same problems, it's from a different perspective. So we've tried taking programs that were written for, mainstream Western society, and just what we call Islamify it, which was, and culturalize it. So we would change the names, and we would change the themes a little and that sort of thing, and take out anything that was inappropriate relating to our religion. And it wasn't really having as much impact. It was having an impact, but not as much as we'd hoped, right, Janine? Talking about what we're doing in your school and, what I did at the school here. And then I was studying Islamic pedagogy at university, so how to teach from an Islamic perspective. And I realized that there's such wisdom in teaching it from Islam first, with the 3 principles woven into it, as opposed to a 3 principles program with Islam woven into it. And so that's where Back to the FITRAH for Kids came along. And the word FITRAH means that innate state that we're born in. And so we are, the whole concept of what we do at Back to the FITRAH is helping people back to their innate state, or their original state, as you were talking about, Harry. So I think that's the big reason why. Are we having fun with it? Are we having fun, Janine?
Yeah, I always learn so much. Even I thought, I've started looking at the younger children's one, and I thought, this will be more simplified and, easier, and I won't get much from it. But subhanAllah, just going back to basics, there's this one expression, going from fast and furious to calm and curious. And that really impacted me. I could see a lot of where I go off track is I'm moving too fast, and get that frustration and things don't flow. And that just that simple expression, going from fast and furious to calm and curious, like there's so much woven into that. Like a child can get so much understanding and insight into their own behavior and start to self-reflect and see it in others. And, just those little expressions that they pick up on, that can be so, so beneficial to get at an early age. And that's just what's missing in our education system, that there's this alienation that humanity it's out the window. It's all about, excelling and getting this ATAR and, that human need that we all, that human element of knowing how we operate is so important to all of those kids achieving their best. Some kids do, alhamdulillah, have parents who are quite near their FITRAH and they stay on their FITRAH, but it's very select, and this, like what we're experiencing in the world today. And to be able to get these kids to see that truth about themselves, that there's this place inside where they've got this wisdom, and to have the self-awareness when they're out of that's just, it's priceless. It's priceless.
And it sets the tone for what they're going to be as adults. One of the noticeable things, Janine, about Salt Spring Island, not all the adults really grew to be great teachers or this or that, but all the kids, unbelievable, brutal, incredible kids living happy lives, not without contact, but they are way above average in that happiness and contentment and fulfilling their destiny or their, yeah, they want some money, but they want to be they care, they have compassion about the world. Things that are missing in adults, they have encompassed. So you're teaching not only something that will help the kids today, but I believe that it will have a domino effect, that their kids will be more beautiful as well. It's that whole sequence of things that happen. And I've seen it happen in the turnaround of, when I was 27 to 75 and see the kids. It's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to see.
SubhanAllah, it's the best gift a child can be given, SubhanAllah.
Well, actually, they already have the gift. It's the best gift to give them is that they can see that gift, because it gets so covered up by all the adult rhetoric that they experience.
Protecting their gift, or
protecting
highlighting their gift. Yeah.
So give us a little bit. Again, I wasn't really, it's not a book, it's a course, and just give us a little bit of the feel of that, and maybe some of the reasons why you see how to do, because the truth is the world doesn't really know how to teach kids too well. It knows how to teach adults from an adult perspective, but they don't really know how to teach kids to hang out type of thing. And I know, going into my daughter's class as given special privileges to help teach and so on, it was very noticeable that the teachers really aren't that comfortable in hanging out with the kids unless they're on top of the journey type of thing. The kids must do this, must do that. And I want to emphasize this. I'm sorry for talking so much, but all the teachers are identifying and classifying and labeling the kids negatively. I found that was very destructive. That in reality, the kids weren't that, just the teachers thought they were, and they were all relating. And you could see that label starting to penetrate the kid's psyche and so on. And when I came around and didn't do that, didn't relate to it, the kid was totally different, totally different. So you're talking about sharing love and understanding from a kid's perspective. It's much different than a lot of the world understands.
Yeah, I'd love to share with you something very quickly. It's sort of not the program, but a model that we've created at Back to the FITRAH to address that actual issue that you're talking about. This is our healthy relationships, or we are all okay model, depending what we want to call it at the time. But what you're talking about here, when I'm talking about to teachers and parents, I'm sharing with them that, being compassionate is our natural state. But when we see the person as the problem, so you're talking about labels, that's when you see them as the problem, you put a label on them, then you lose your compassion. And so we break it down that way at Back to the FITRAH to try and get them to see how labeling means that we lose compassion. So I just thought I would quickly share with you our model. But you asked the question, how do we teach kids? And I had a insight yesterday, just before I ran the program at the mosque last night. I wanted to teach them about what we call the IGS, the innate guidance system, which is Allah guiding us, which you might call universal mind or spirit, or there's many other words for it. And it came to me to do this obstacle course with them and get them all to do it with a blindfold on first, with no instructions, just telling them this is the obstacle course. You have to go around doing it with your blindfold on. And then I got them to do it with the blindfold on, but they had a partner who would whisper quietly in their ear which way to go. They weren't allowed to touch them, but just whisper in their ear which way to go. And I got them to sit down afterwards, and you were talking about how do you teach in true Islamic teaching. You sit on the floor with them, so everybody's sitting on the floor. I'm sitting on the floor with them, not on chair above them or anything. I'm down on the floor with them, and I got them to compare their experience. And I said, what was it like when you had no one to show you the way, when you had to figure it out and you couldn't see anything? And they said it was very scary and had a lot of thinking, and they were very tense. I said, well, how did it feel when you had somebody there whispering in your ear? And I said, I felt more relaxed. I felt calmer. It was easier. And I said, that's exactly the difference between when we realize Allah is guiding us, or when we're actually trying to get through life blindly, not noticing that or not listening to how we've got that guidance there for us. And that's how you teach them. They get that message so quickly from that activity because they felt it. They actually felt the difference. And I said, that's the difference. That's how it works. That's how you teach children. But it's not just how you teach children. I argue that that's how you teach adults too. So when I have adults in the room, I would make them do exactly the same thing. Don't I, Janine? When we did the first workshop I did in person with Janine in Melbourne, the very first activity on the first day, I had them punching balloons around the room, and that was a metaphor as well. And on the second day, I had them wrapping each other up in toilet paper and busting out of the toilet paper, and that was a metaphor for something else as well. So I make the adults do it too, because I think we all learn better through experience than through just being chanted at by someone. And so that's how you teach. And the reason... Yeah, go ahead, Janine.
Those moments, because they're so profound, like juggling balloons as tests, and then you go back tomorrow into the classroom and you've got this profound metaphor in front of you. So when this test comes along, you're like, okay, all right, so I've got a balloon to juggle. Like, they're so profound and they have such a deep impact when you go straight back out into the world, because you've got this light metaphor to balance your mind and into calmness on this huge test that you might be facing. It's very, very profound. And I know it for me, you know, even coming into Islam, it was through visual, you know, like the prostration, somebody submitting their whole being to Allah. Like, that was profound for me to see that. I'd never seen that. And, you know, the kids are very visual, especially the boys, you know, having that visual element, like the snow globe when it's shaken up, that they can see, oh, I can't see when I'm all emotional. They're lasting images that can last a lifetime. You're teaching it in grade 7, and then, you know, they're into VCE, and, you know, they remember that, and they can, you know, wait for the calm so they see again. SubhanAllah.
Yeah. We have all these tools that we use, like this is one of our teaching tools that we've been using in the school, where, you know, this is when all your thinking is all stirred up, you can't see through it, but then if you just leave it alone, it all settles and you've got clarity again. So that's pretty much how we like to teach, is, you know, using actual metaphors. And I just feel really blessed that my grandmother actually was in children's education and created a theatre company when I was 3 years old, which was all about teaching kids through theatrics and through demonstration in a metaphoric sort of way. So I feel like, because I grew up in that's what's led me to love teaching in this way, because it's just, I've inherited it from my grandmother.
It's a natural way of sharing. In reality, we never grew old. I never grew. I'm 75. I'm still just a little kid. I know that. And the way you're talking about teaching kids is the way I want to learn, because it's the way I learn without thinking, without seriousness. And it's experiential and visual. And anything that is spiritual is going to be visual. So the more spiritual you are, the more metaphoric you are, the more visual you are, the more you are open to the mystical way of teaching. That is what penetrates this intellect to go beyond that into that absorption. But to be a little kid as an adult is the greatest gift in the universe, and not enough of us are doing it. They know how to learn. We don't know how, and you're explaining to us how that happens. And what I can tell from Janine and you, when that happens in the room with the kids, the energy is felt not only by the kids, and that we both, as we all know, by the teachers as well. And when the teachers turned on, the kids can feel it.
Yeah, well, the parents last night said to me afterwards, we need something like that too. And I said, well, I already do that, but when I put the programs out there, none of you sign up for it. Like, they'll always sign their kids up for the programs, but it's really hard to get the adults to see, to come to the programs. And I said, well, now you've seen it, now you like it, make sure next time I'm advertising the program, you come and join. Because yeah, adults need a bit of fun too. We've got so serious that I think that's why adults have lost their wisdom, because they've got into their heads too much.
That they're in their heads, and that's why you see people in 3P when they have a spiritual insight. All insights are spiritual, whether it's psychological, physical, or what. They're still spiritually or origin, but what happens is they can't just let it flow. They've got to, they get in their head, and you know they're in their head because they can't feel Allah or spirit. They can talk about it from a ritual perspective, but they can't. We need to be able to expand out of our intellect into the unknown and connect. And if we can't do that, we're going to give up hope. We're going to give up a little bit of our soul to compromise, to fit in. Maybe we'll get more money, but will we be a better human being, or the type of human being we need to be, i.e. like the kids?
I've got a story that fits with what you're just saying, Harry. When I just talked about before how I've been studying Islamic pedagogy, when I first started my degree, I was finding it really hard to do the assignments because they were fairly rigid in the way that you had to write them this many words, and it had to have this and this and this. And firstly, I complained to them and said, you're teaching us Islamic pedagogy, which means it's meant to be student focused, and the assessment is meant to be student focused. And so therefore it's meant to be working with the strengths of the student. I said, the way you want me to do it, that's not my strengths, because all of the comments I was getting from my assignments were they're not seeing the depth of my understanding in my assignments. I said, you're not going to see the depth of my understanding if you make me do it that way. But if you let me do it my way, you'll see the depth of my understanding. So they took that away, came back and said, okay, providing you can tick all the boxes in the rubric, you can do it your way. Because I challenged their own pedagogy. They said, yeah, we better practice what we preach. So I did it my own way. And I did it very intuitively. It wasn't intellectual at all. I just let myself be guided how to deliver the message I wanted to deliver. And I ticked all the boxes in the rubric except for one box, which was, why did I do it that way? And so my lecturer said, listen, this is excellent, but you have to tick that box. Either send me a video or write me something that ticks that box, and we're done. It took me 3 days to find the intellectual why I did it, because I had to let it all just settle. There was amazing intellect involved, but the intellect was not in the driving seat. The wisdom was. The intellect was the passenger, making sure that things all well, we use our intellect, right? It's an important part of who we are.
It's part of the harmony of who we are.
But
it was not. We're not poo-pooing the intellect, but we don't want it to dominate the
That's right. So it really did take me 3 days to find the intellectual answer to that. And it was while I was bushwalking and not thinking about it that it popped into my head and went, this is why you did it. You did it because of this, 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 and this. And so I actually recorded a video while I'm huffing and puffing up a hill going, this is why I did it, and sent it to my lecturer, and he gave me a high distinction for my assignment. So yeah, that's how it is. That's how we need to do it.
The only way we can do it. If you want to be a true teacher, that's the only way. If you're going to copy a strategy that the world is going, you're not touching your soul. You're not touching who you are. The most important thing, the first thing when you take truth inside yourself is you find out a little bit more about yourself, who I am. And then you see, oh, I have a style. It's not their style, it's my style. It's what works for me. It may not work for them, but it works for me. And the more you see who you are, including your style and the way you do it. So actually, I'd say that 3 days was very beneficial for you, Catherine, because you defined yourself.
Mm.
And
yeah, it was actually useful, because that then meant I could use that for, because everything I did as something leading into what I would do it back to the FITRAH. So then, having unpacked the intellectual why, I was able to use that as my marketing. So everything I did got used.
that's right. It's always just one thought. It started with a thought, God's thought or Allah's thought. And it's just been a continuation of, and everything is connected, everything. And kids know that.
Mm.
We forgot because we got a little bit obsessed with me and my success, and gee, they have more money than I have. But if you connect to this one thought, then everything is fascinating. And of course, here's the biggest joke of all. This is what Sid said to me. I'm just a baby. I'm just a beginner like everybody else. We're all just learning. But what you're talking about is an expression on a practical level of who you are. And that's what you're teaching the kids as well. It's okay to be yourself. Because of course, each one is uniquely different. Each one has a different way of expressing love. Each one has a gift in their heart, and let's say a twinkle in their eye. Yeah, I love kids. I just absolutely love kids. They're just so much easier to be with than adults.
So there's another part that was important.
Boo, adults, boo. Excuse me. The little kid in me is coming up. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can imagine what sort of kid you were in the classroom.
Yeah, it was worked out beautifully, because I would stir up creative energy with the kids, and every once in a while, not very often, because the kids respected me. So you can let things loose if they respect you. But when they don't respect you and they get loose, it gets wild. But every once in a while, the energy would get out of control. And my daughter would bring it right back down to a calm. She just knew how to do that better than I could, to be honest, Catherine. And it worked beautifully. Not very often, but once in a while. And I was glad she could do that. You know, she knew how to bring the kids back down, calm them out, and we went again, you know, type of thing. But really, all I did, Catherine, was talk to the kids like human beings and enjoy them and laugh with them, and yeah, and tell them bad jokes.
One of the things that's really important to Muslims is that kids have a connection with the Quran. But what we find in most of our schools is exactly what you're talking about. It's taught in such a serious way. They're taught to memorize it and recite it properly. Those of us who don't speak Arabic, we don't even know what it is that we're reciting because we don't have the language to understand it. And I think a lot of the time kids come away from it like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I memorizing these words that I don't understand and have to repeat them, and everyone's making it so important? You'd be surprised how many parents I get come to me. It's like, my son's memorized the whole of the Quran and now he won't revise it with me, and I'm getting really frustrated with him because he won't revise it. You know, like, the Quran is thousands of pages, you know, and they've memorized the whole thing as kids, which is absolutely amazing. And now the parents are getting really upset with them because they're like 13, 14, and they're going, I don't know why I'm doing this. And so one of the core things about Islamic pedagogy is how to, you know, build that love, you know, for the Quran into it. And so each lesson that we do is themed around a verse from the Quran. And the idea being that by the end of the session, they can see how that verse makes a difference in their life. And when they see how it makes a difference in their life, then they will form a natural attachment to it, a natural connection with it, because they're starting to understand why these words are important. Because no one's really teaching them why they're important. They might be teaching them, oh yes, it means this, and we have to do this because of this, and that's kind of how it's taught, but not the love for it. And so I don't know if you want us to go through it, but I did put the PowerPoint together to show you which verse we used for which lesson and what our aim was in terms of them, you know, connecting with that verse and to some part of their human experience.
Well, not the whole thing, but certainly a sample of it would be really helpful for, and by the way, anyone is free to ask questions or interact or so on with what's being shared. Go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, okay, I will let's start with share from, hang on, slideshow, share from current slide. Here we go. So this is the first session, and the first session is we introduce the innate guidance system. So just like I was sharing with you earlier about them doing the blindfold game, this is the verse. And when it says we are closer to him than his jugular vein, we is representing Allah, meaning Allah is closer to you than your jugular vein. And so the way I connected that with the blindfold game was, you had somebody whispering in your ear to tell you which way to go. Allah's saying he's closer to us than our jugular vein. Where is that? It's right here in our throat. Like, you couldn't get that much closer to us, that Allah is there, that close to us, guiding us all the time. And so that whole verse starts to having a different meaning for them in the sense that, oh wow, I actually have my creator there for me, that close to me all the time. And the kids, they come out of that feeling a sense of comfort, a sense of safety. When I asked them the takeaways at the end of the session, they say, the words come out, it feels good, I feel safe, I don't feel alone. I mean, what amazing things for them to feel. And then also, you know, connect it back to their back to their religion and the Quran. And so now it starts to have some relevance in their life. So that's one example. I don't know, Janine, do you want to share one? Which one would you like to share? I'll go through them. You can say stop.
I was thinking about the 𝐊𝐚𝐴 𝐧𝐞, where Allah's created us in the best form.
That one?
Yeah, that they understand that everything about them is perfect, whole, and complete. You know, yes, we make mistakes, but we can turn back anytime. And I'm sort of getting mixed up. In the teen program, we talk about self-image and self-esteem, which was, you know, hugely impactful for some of the girls to understand the difference about their self-image, which is all in their head, which can be distorted and corrupted and confusing. But that self-image, you know, that deep knowing that we're fine and okay, it's beautiful to see kids see that and have it articulated, because a lot of the stuff we know it, but to have it spoken, and then for you to know that that person knows it and I know it, you know, how can you bully somebody when we've talked about that as a class, that we're all equal, we're all in this beautiful state, you know, whole and complete. There's a deeper understanding, and when you know your classmates know that, and your teacher knows that, and there's this community of people who now are on the same page, subhanallah, it's so beautiful. And that the child, like from the young children, knowing that from an early age, that no one can take away anything from their FITRAH, you know, whether they be called purple or blue or whatever people want to call them, that nobody can touch that place inside, that Allah's created us in this perfect manner. It's just such a building block for them to stay confident and calm no matter what. You know, when you hear a child say, oh, so he can't make me angry, you know, like I've still got that calm place inside. You know, it's so beautiful.
In fact, I can show you what the kids actually thought about understanding that. Like, these are the sorts of words they came up with. These are actually copied and pasted, the words that 10 to 13-year-olds said, knowing that, you know, that Allah is guiding them. This is at the end of the program, knowing all of these things that we've now connected them to, just through, you know, they were already connected to it, but just washing away all the myths that they've been taught since that got in the way of that.
And it's building amazing. That common language too, Catherine, isn't it? That, yeah. Like, you know, I know, and I know she knows. So there's certain stuff you can't get away with anymore, because it's, you know, it's that's empowering the community. Like, do I really need to watch you? You know yourself. Like, there's a whole different ball game now.
Yeah.
You're letting them on the court. You're on the court now. Like, I gave you that knowledge. You've got your wisdom. You've got what you need. You don't need me there. Like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You know, subhanAllah, it's just a different setting free.
It's totally different, Janine. It's a difference between night and day, because one is geared from, I don't have the truth, and the other one is, I can access my own wisdom and doctor myself, or I can feel good. And it's a totally different paradigm. Nothing outside of us can affect us, and we can be flexible in adapting to whatever life throws at us. It's a totally different paradigm to, I have to blame somebody for my problem, or I'm, et cetera, et cetera. And what I feel you're doing is you're modernizing the language. You're not distorting the purity of the truth coming from your faith. But what you're doing is you're bringing it into a modern world, that in words and language that people can understand. And of course, you have a competitive edge over everybody else, because you've been exposed to the three principles, or the truth, from a spiritual, psychological perspective. And it just brings everything alive for you. Your truth, Sid always said, all I'm teaching is within, you know, go within. That's all I'm teaching. And you're teaching via that. And I can just feel the kids going, oh, my stuff makes, you know, my parents said, do this or do that. And I'm a girl, and I have to do this and do that. But when it makes sense to me, then I don't have a problem with doing it. But when it doesn't make sense, I cannot do it. Not with my heart. I can do it with fake, but I can't do it real. And you're teaching the kids, you'll take your faith with you, but you'll take yourself and the better part of who you are with you as well. They go hand in hand together. That's very, very powerful and beautiful. And it shows, because they're open to you, that they're curious about it. Because if they weren't, some religions, would stop you from doing this. But you obviously, something's happening in the Muslim world where they're opening up to this teaching. And that's very lucky. You must be the right time at the right place with the right people to happen.
Isn't it always though, Harry? If we're following wisdom, isn't it always going to be the right time at the right place, the right people, the right moment?
Yeah, because the thought comes from Allah, not from our intellect. It comes out at the right moment, and you go, right. That's why when we rest, and you mentioned being calm, and then all of a sudden at 3 o'clock in the morning, I have this pure idea pour out. And I go, oh, right. It's easy. It's coming from Allah. And when you listen to that, and you have all of this great material, you notice that there's a lot of good material in this Muslim world, a lot of good stuff. And you get to share it. But it's dead unless the person who's reading it or feeling it is alive with it. And it should be inspiring. It should take the mind. It fertilizes the mind. It's beautiful.
I think you made a really good point there. I think one of the bit of language that's sort of been popping up for me recently has been inspired action versus prescribed action. Like prescribed action is you have to, should, whatever, do something, whereas inspired action is you just go, yeah, I'm going to do this right now. And I think what's happened in the Muslim world is it's become very prescribed, and the inspired action is missing. So I'll give you an example, because we've had this debate around, well, there's certain things we're prescribed to do. And I said, yeah, absolutely. We're prescribed to do them. Allah knows why, alhamdulillah. But we've also been given things like, when you're angry, do this, do this, do this. And there's a variety of things you can do when you're angry, and advice we're given for what to do when we're angry. I said, yeah, but if you do it by prescription, it's not going to have an effect, is it? Because if you're angry and you're doing those things by prescription from an angry place, it's not going to shift the anger, because we know the anger isn't fixed through doing something. It's just fixed, through the shift in your thinking. I said, whereas if you're angry and you feel inspired to do something, then potentially, because that inspiration has come from Allah, go and do this, that's, that movement or whatever has shifted your thinking somewhere else. And so if we started looking at our religion from a more inspired place than prescription application of it, I think we would be doing a much better job. I'm not saying we're disregarding what we're being taught. It's more about where we're coming from in the application of what we've been taught.
That's perfect. That's
perfect. Yes.
Go ahead, Suad, say it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yes, the whole problem in Islam is the explanation of the Quran. In my opinion, if we just go with the kids to the true nature of love, we don't have to scare them, because this energy of scaring as a human being always will run away for something that scared us. And for kids, when we teach them that they have to be scared from Allah, they run from Allah, because it's for them, they are connected, and we scare them. When they are connected to Allah, and we scare them for the source of connection, it doesn't make sense for them. That's why sometimes we see kids, Muslim kids, they don't want to learn Quran, they don't want to pray, they don't want to fast, because for them it doesn't make any sense. They are connected to Allah, and we scare them from Allah. Instead, we have to teach them how to love Allah. Allah is within us, is not outside of us. Allah is not somewhere else. But the whole Muslim community teach kids that Allah is somewhere else, and Allah is watching over us. And if we don't do good things, we will go to Jahannam. And the kids, for them, doesn't make any sense. And as for us too, when we have this level of consciousness, it doesn't make any sense that Allah will punish us for human experience. We are here in this earth to experience how humans are, and Allah is always loving us unconditionally. That's why He's making everything for us easy if we are connected. So better to teach the kids how to be connected more through love, not through fear. And this will make the whole game changing, because the whole explanation for Islam, in my opinion, is messed up. Because the whole game for the fitrah, for what Allah told us in the Quran, there is not khafu Allah, scared from me. There is ikhshawni, be humbled when somebody talk about me, not be scared for me. There is no ayah in the Quran that said khaf. Yes, al-mu'minun ladina yakhafuna Allah, meaning yakhshawna Allah, being humbled when Allah is here, not being scared, because Allah Azza wa Jal knows as a human being, something that scared us, we run away from it as a human being. So it's always make things easy for us. We just have to learn and to teach our kids how to read Quran one more time, because Quran has everything, has every single thing that a human being needs to be guided in their life. Thank you. That was my share today. Thank you.
It is a beautiful religion, a beautiful faith. And at the essence of it, there's always pure truth. That's actually Omar is probably a leading expert in explaining that, of how it works. He has this beautiful story, I think it's a Muslim story, about how when you make tea, each religion has a different herbs in it, different flavors to it, but you still need the water for the tea the water is the spirit. And what I can feel from what you ladies are, all three of you are talking about, is if the spirit is part of the teaching, not from a discipline perspective, but from an opening up perspective, kids are going to touch their unlimited potential. They're going to touch what they need to explore. Because the most beautiful thing about the kids is we don't know how much they can open up, but some of them can open up far beyond what we have touched. And to me, that's the greatest dream I have, is I love the thought that these kids are going to be sharing with, and if they share it in the Muslim world, we know it's going to heal the world. We know it's part of the healing that has to happen. Each tea has to heal and then come together and understand the commonality of what we're learning. But it's beautiful to realize that the kids do not have to go through all of, to use your words, Suad, fear. Yes. The truth is there is a lot of fear in the world. And when I talk to adults, Catherine, that seems to be 90% of what they're talking about. I'm afraid about this. I'm afraid about that. I'm afraid to walk the street. I'm afraid to do this. And I go, gee, I never thought of it. It's not my nature to really, my nature is to do the other, just explore and have fun.
I've seen or heard an interesting explanation around fear and love and hope, where love is like the body of the bird, and you have one wing is fear and the other wing is hope. And obviously if you have more of fear or more of hope, the bird's not going to be able to fly straight, right? If one wing is heavier than the other. And so love is the core, isn't it? The body of the bird is love. So there's a place for fear, there's a place for hope, but love is the driving force.
It's the essence of everything. it brings us all together. When Sid talks about oneness, he's talking about love.
Mm.
If you love, how can you have prejudice if you love the feeling you have right now and know that it's in everybody else? How could you have prejudice? How could you not have compassion? It's just automatically brings in that oneness. And anything that expands our horizon outside of our head is going to bring hope.
You only have to look at young kids, you know, of all different backgrounds playing in the sand pit together. There's no prejudice. They haven't learned prejudice. So they're the embodiment of how we were before we learned about prejudice. We learned to be prejudiced.
Like stress, we learned it usually from our own family.
Yeah. We are responsible for making kids, for making them how they think. In the hadith, Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, every kid is born on FITRAH. So the parents who are responsible for making him Jewish, Muslim, atheist, or whatever. So we are responsible for how our kids are, if they are in the vicinity of love or they are in the vicinity of fear. And the more we make them fearful, the more they became disconnected to the FITRAH. The more we teach them love, the more they stay connected and they are away from any kind of troubles in their lives. So love, fear, it's something, physical fear, it's like, it's okay to have physical fear, but not this kind of thought, fear from thinking, for fear as a thought. That's what make people like, you know, not having a lot of troubles in their life. And as we have that in our lives, like our parents give us this fear from anything. And we make this fear so big that we are scared from anything, just, you know, from our own thoughts. So this is what we have to teach the kids, not being fearful, being loved and being loving more than being in fear.
Well, I feel like we've kind of had a class today. Like this is, you know, adult class of talking and sharing what, you know, what we feel. Before, I'd like you ladies to sum up a little bit, and if anyone has a question before we move on to the rest of our life today, I'm wondering if anyone has a question or a thought. And if not, you know, why don't you two kind of wrap up, not only sort of any positive thoughts you have.
I have something to share. From where that fear word came, like Allah is closer to us, even like closer to our jugular vein. It's a relationship of love, like that fear came from somewhere outside. It's not within us. We are not born with that. We just we are born in that way that we just flow, go in a flow. It just came from outside. It's not within us.
That's really profound, and that's what we can trust. Like whenever I get confused, I just go inside to the feeling and I say, oh, it feels okay. I say, well, then it is okay.
Mm.
You know, and what other people are doing is they feel uncomfortable and then they start analyzing it and getting into their heads. But if you bypass your head and just go to the feeling, most of the time you'll find out the feeling is okay. And you're right, Anand. Fear is a construct that we've created in our human condition. But there is no fear when you're connected to the oneness of life. All there is love and gratitude and caring. I actually hate when I don't care about other people. I just can't stand that. It just feels like I'm a robot, cold. And yet, one thought away, change thought, boom, I'm back inside, and it's there in front of me. Just one thought, and you change it. And what's the answer to addiction, Catherine? Change thought. What's the answer for the kids? You can change your mind, you know. You don't have to just keep and that's
I think that's really brought me to what my final point might be, is children trust that, and their distrust of all of this is coming from, you know, the people that influence them in their lives as they're growing up. And I think what our aim with our programs is to help them go back to trusting what they know, because they've been contradicted so much in their life that they've lost trust in what they know. And I really see even the physical change in the way they're sitting and holding themselves in the session when they realize, oh, I was right all along. I can trust that.
beautiful. That's a bullseye, that's for sure, Catherine. There's no doubt about it. And we've all been in that boat too. It's funny, it's no different for the kids than us, but for them, it's easier to step into. And yet they believe they have to listen to the nonsense of their parents. And by the way, I don't mean to say that all stuff parents are sharing is nonsense, because I know that's not true. Parents love their kids and are the most important thing is their kids. So obviously they have tremendous love for them, but they have stressful lives. and it's, you know, I have a feeling your program is not only going to help the kids, of course, which is it's going to help the parents to relax as well. Of course, because once the kids get more secure, there's less to complain about. Yeah.
The parents needs to learn the program before the kids. Yeah.
So I think this is a good place for us to stop. Thanks, Janine, for coming and sharing. Your heart's very good, Janine. Very, very beautiful. You know what you're sharing, and I'm sure the kids like your common sense as well. The simple way that you're sharing it, they can relate to it, you know, rather than convoluted type of stuff. And Catherine, is always a treat to feel your lively spirit and the way you share and so on. Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. And more, obviously more and more is happening in Back to the FITRAH. But when I went and did a little bit of teaching in Back to the FITRAH, just one little thing, I was touched, as I always am, by the wisdom of the people with the things on their heads and stuff like that. And I was touched by, you know, the wisdom. This is a spiritual group of people. Very, very beautiful. I like spiritual people. So
we're very grateful for your support, Harry.
Oh, well, it's been brought to us by Allah, or by the guided by the Spirit, to be honest. It was you know, when you came on, I recognized it right away. It just has kept expanding. And when you had Omar on your conference, that was all part of the sharing and the expansion. And I don't know what I'm doing, but I do know good energy. I'm very good at that. And I can tell you, I like everybody's energy, but I especially like that. And I've been touched by the Muslim people, especially the women, and I'm proud to say that. I like learning from women. All men like learning from women. So with that romantic version of Allah and Muslim, we're going to say, how do you say goodbye again? You say it.
As-salama.
Okay, very good, Suad. So thank you, everybody, and stop recording.